I'm Jeremy Wade. For 35 years, I've been tracking down freshwater monsters.
That is a big fish.
But wherever I look, these apex predators are disappearing.
This is really remote, but even here, the big fish have gone.
For a biologist, that's a wake-up call, a sign that our rivers are in trouble. To uncover what's going on, I'm heading to 6 of the planet's major waterways. I need to mix with the people who live along their banks and test the waters any way I can.
Yes.
My mission? To find out if these mighty rivers really are past the point of no return. The Danube has an unusual claim to fame. Welling up in Germany's Black Forest, it runs east along the edge of the Austrian Alps, swings south across the Great Plains of Hungary, then cuts through a dramatic gorge to enter its final phase. And by the time it emerges from Romania to empty into the Black Sea, it has flowed through 10 countries, which makes it the world's most international river. But delving into recent reports, I'm surprised to see that the Danube is also ranked as one of the world's most endangered rivers. Now, Europe has stringent environmental laws, so to find this, of all rivers, on an at-risk list, that really is quite disturbing. Go online, and the Danube is sold as a river of romantic cities and picture postcard scenery. But it's time to look beyond the castles and cruises and find out what's really going on with this mighty river. I'm starting my investigation in Romania, at the less glamorous end of the river.
This is the mouth of the Danube, what people here know as Mile Zero. Behind me is the Black Sea, and over there, if you keep following this shipping channel, is a vast delta.
The Danube Delta is one of the largest wetlands on Earth. It's a vital refuge for endangered wildlife. Birds flock here in their millions. And its waters are reportedly home to 84 species of fish. If there's one part of this river that ought to be in good shape, it's here in the delta. St. George is supposedly the main fishing hub for the area, but it feels completely dead. This place was built with money from fishing, and in its heyday, I guess it would have been thronging with people, but now, pretty much a ghost town. Something here doesn't add up. A healthy river should be able to support a thriving fishery. Bună! Hello.
Oh, salut.
Salut. Hello.
Nico.
I got Jeremy.
Oh,
Are you fishing now?
yes.
Okay.
Morunul se prindea în Marea Neagră. De când au interzis pescuitul.
Nico tells me that until recently, people here used to hunt a huge and very lucrative fish. Beluga sturgeon can grow as big as a great white shark and live for over 100 years. For millennia, they've been caught for their meat. What makes this fish so valuable, though, are its eggs, better known as beluga caviar. Today, people are willing to pay more than $4,000 a pound for this ultimate luxury. But beluga sturgeon have become so rare that it's now illegal to catch them. So is this why there's not many fishermen here today?
Problema este deci că mulți oameni au plecat din sat.
Because of the sturgeon ban, a lot of people just left. Since the ban, he's had to adapt, and so what he does now, rather than fishing off the river mouth, he's fishing for other species. Nico agrees to let me tag along. As well as seeing what's in his catch, I want to find out what the story is with the Danube's few remaining beluga sturgeon. We're very close to the bank because out in the middle there's very strong current. The fish tend to hug the bank. They don't have to expend so much energy to hold their place in the currents.
Now, okay. Se leagă.
Okay, that's good.
Morning, I'll be back.
We leave the traps to do their work and travel deeper into the delta. Nico has invited me to his fishing camp.
Ciorbă de pește, cu pește din Dunăre. Crap.
This used to include sturgeon. Now it's just other species they can find. And this is carp. I can see its eye looking out at me as it bubbles away in there.
Good.
The boiled fish head is better than it looks. My real interest, however, is in beluga sturgeon. What was the biggest one that you saw or heard about?
360 de kg. Aproape 6 metri avea. Așa, deci cât o barcă.
Right, 360 kilos. That is, I believe that's just a little short of 800 pounds. He says it was getting on for the size of the boat, so I mean, we're talking sort of 15-foot fish.
Da, deci eu m-aș fi aranjat pe un an de zile, deci adică n-aș mai ieși la pescuit.
So you're saying a fish that size now, if it was legal, you wouldn't have to work for a year? Naturally, hard-up fishermen like Nico are hoping that the sturgeon will make a comeback so that the ban can be lifted. He says when we could fish for sturgeon, we used to work and we got results. Now we work harder, but with less results. As if to underline his point, Nico digs out an old photograph of another fish, and I can hardly believe my eyes. That is an extraordinary picture. This is absolutely huge. It's a Wells catfish.
A început să scârție mulineta și când a plecat tot...
Nico says he caught the fish about 15 years ago with a rod and line. This weighed well clear of 250 pounds, and it's about 1.5 times the length of him. That is one of the biggest Wells catfish that I've heard about and certainly seen a picture of. I've no idea if giant catfish are still out here. Maybe our nets will spring a surprise. You got it?
Da, da. Nothing.
Just a stick. Nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing. The fishing season has only just opened. There should be plenty to catch. Nothing in this one. The empty nets are a real surprise to me,
Și timpul ăsta și...
but not to Nico.
Nu prea mai este.
Although this is a good spot, he says, year after year, the number of fish is just going down, down, down.
Pescar, deci, la Marea Neagră, tradiția...
Nico says the underlying problem is the decline of the beluga sturgeon. If you stop people fishing for the beluga sturgeon, they're bound to then turn to other fish to make a living, and that's going to increase pressure and it's going to cause a decline in those other species, and that is what's happened, and that is what is continuing to happen. It all sort of makes sense. To the casual observer, the Danube Delta looks healthy. Below the surface, though, the picture isn't so rosy. What puzzles me is why, after more than 10 years of protection, beluga sturgeon are not turning up in bigger numbers. To find out what's going on, I've pulled some strings. One of the few people in Romania allowed to catch sturgeon is fish biologist Dr. Radu Suciu.
I'm Radu.
and I'm lucky to be invited to join him.
This is the best fishing ground for sturgeon in the whole Danube.
For the last 18 years, Radu has been keeping tabs on sturgeon numbers.
You see how it works? Sides of the nets.
Yes,
You see?
yeah, I see that, yeah. Our deep-set net is well placed to catch sturgeon, which typically move along the river bed.
You are actually the best assistant I've ever had.
Well, there we go. Adult sturgeon swim upriver to lay their eggs. Our aim today is to intercept baby sturgeon as they make their way downriver to the sea. Sturgeon are covered with these spiky scoots, so they're very vulnerable to nets. All they've got to do is touch it and move, and they're wrapped up. Radu can use the number of babies we catch to calculate if the overall sturgeon population is rebounding or still shrinking. We're pulling in, eh?
Look at this one.
Native crayfish here. That's proof that we were on the bottom. These tend not to swim by the surface.
Ah, we have a fish.
This is a thing called a pietrar. It sort of means stone. It lives down among the rocks. I've not seen these before. I think we're getting close to the end here.
Yeah.
But this is a saberfish. Probably got caught while we were pulling the net up.
That is a nice fish.
But no sturgeon.
Nope.
I'm a little bit disappointed. I was hoping I would see a sturgeon of some description. Despite my disappointment, Radu says his long-term records indicate a fragile recovery.
It is very difficult because of the high value of the fish. You know, this is the most valuable animal on the planet. They fished like hell. Before, we had numbers like 8, 12 in 1 year. This number has tripled.
So it sounds like this fishing ban is starting to have an effect. I mean, that seems fairly clear from your numbers.
It will take time. A bit longer than we thought in the beginning, but it will have an effect.
However, with a fish as insanely profitable as beluga sturgeon, temptation lingers. Radu also monitors adult fish using satellite tags. And he says he's got something interesting to show me.
You see, this is a normal track, and this is totally unusual one.
What is going on with this fish? I'm in Romania, investigating the state of the Danube. The river's mightiest fish, the giant beluga sturgeon, is now so rare that catching them is illegal. But fish biologist Dr. Radu Suciu has been tracking sturgeon with satellite tags, and it seems not everyone is playing by the rules.
This is a normal track of an adult beluga male. It was coming out of the delta and heading towards this wintering site in the Bay of Odessa, in Ukrainian waters. A track.
Next is a very different track, picked up from another of his tagged sturgeon.
His record is showing that it was popping up here after being immobile for 2 days. Suddenly it came to the surface from 62 meters to 0 meters.
So it's like 200 feet.
Yeah, and then it moved almost straight to the bank, to this village Novo Fedorivka. And it ended up in Saki at a railroad station. So it was taking a train.
Clearly, this unlucky sturgeon ended up in the wrong hands.
That's very simple, it's poaching.
Thwarting the sturgeon poachers is the job of Romania's Delta Police. And with a bit of help from Radu, I've taught my way onto their next patrol.
Will be 5 boats. All the boats will be in a line 300 meters apart.
Care braconierii nu le lasă să le vadă toată lumea.
Are you armed when you do this?
Yes, just in case we run in some unforeseen event or someone very aggressive.
The next day, we set out to find poachers at the mouth of the river. It's a huge area to search. And to make things harder, the poachers submerge their nets out of sight. best hope of finding these death traps is to spread out.
So this is a bit like trolling. This is what I do occasionally. I'm pulling a lure behind the boat. Here, it's just a weight with some crude hooks attached to it. And if there's any nets down there, that's going to snag onto it. They found something.
I'm on patrol with Romania's Delta Police. Acting on a tip-off, we're at the mouth of the Danube, looking for concealed nets put out to catch rare beluga sturgeon. We've spotted what looks like a snagged animal. Sadly, this harbour porpoise was unable to free itself.
His eyes have been pecked out. That's the first thing that seagulls are going to go for. This is what we didn't want to see. There's skin missing from the tail, and that would have been while it's still alive, just trying to get out of the net.
And there's another grisly surprise.
This is dead sturgeon. They take so long to reach maturity that they are just so vulnerable. You kill them off like this and the population just goes totally downhill.
Within minutes, the body count has tripled. There are 3 different species of sturgeon here, all illegal to catch and all listed as vulnerable or endangered.
This is a beluga that's been cut off in its prime. This is the world's biggest sturgeon, and this one met a very untimely end.
This young fish could have lived well into the next century and produced many young. When a species is so close to extinction, every individual is precious.
I don't think I want to have another day's fishing like this. I think it's important to see it once, but yeah, not a very happy day's fishing. That's another fish, another sturgeon. This one's alive. This one is alive. Fantastic. I'm just putting some gloves on because the scoots are quite sharp. This has been cut up quite a bit by the net, but that's only a flesh wound. But there we go, it's alive and it's going back in the water, away from the net. And that feels very satisfying. That would have been a dead sturgeon not very far into the future. So we have, in our own small way, changed the course of history.
In the past year alone, the Delta Police have fished out over 10 miles of illegal nets and set free more than 100 entangled sturgeon. The root of the problem, I suspect, is greed. If caviar suddenly had no value, if people weren't prepared to pay lots of money for it, do you think the problem would go away and the sturgeon would recover?
I'm not sure if it would go away 100%, but at least 90%. You still have guys hunting them for the thrill, but as long as the value is down, they wouldn't risk it.
At this less wealthy end of the Danube, my first impressions were of decline. Decline in its fish.
Nothing.
And because of this, decline in its fishing communities. But mixing with the people who live here and digging a little deeper,
It is a flagship species.
I believe that the beluga sturgeon could come back.
This is going to swim off quite nicely. There is something about being beside water that contains these armored leviathans, which is a world of difference from being beside water that is basically a lifeless drain. What I'm starting to see is there are people who passionately believe that a living river is something worth fighting for.
Leaving the delta, I'm heading inland. With its historic cities and picturesque countryside, the middle reaches of this mighty river are well known to sightseers. Much less well known, but crucial for my investigation, is another of the Danube's great fish, an iconic apex predator that appears to have gone missing.
I've never seen it. It will be my dream. This one is mysterious.
The Danube is famed for its good looks, but I'm starting to wonder if its beauty only runs skin deep. I've travelled upriver into its middle reaches, where I'm hoping to find another top predator, an elusive creature known as the huken.
Now, this is a landlocked relative of the salmon, and it grows to the size of a man. But since World War II, this fish has become little more than a memory. It's like a ghost fish. I'm wondering what this says about the river and whether I have any chance at all of seeing this fish.
I'm starting my search in Hungary, heading towards its capital, Budapest. Not long ago, this middle section of the Danube was patrolled by huken. I'm eager to talk to anyone who might know about huken. But apart from the occasional commercial barge, the river is strangely empty. Hoping to find signs of life, I decide to check out the backwaters. The distant ring of an axe draws me on.
See you. Mias.
Canoe.
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 It's very solid. Are you a fisherman? Are you a fisherman?
Nem, ahol nincs türelmem. Nem szeretem, mert nincs hol, akkor nem lehet.
Canoe. Key necklace.
Bit by bit, I start to piece things together. It seems that János and his family belong to a tribe of wood-carving gypsies.
Édesapám azt tanított meg faragni. Apámat meg az ő apja tanította meg.
He says he used to carve boats for fishermen who paid him with the fish they caught from the Danube.
Akkor adtak törpeharcsát, kárászokat, keszegeket.
I'm straining to pick out one fish in particular,
Főzött, halott.
but it goes unmentioned.
Ettünk mindaféle gyerekek, ugye, mert nem volt más.
I think I recognize most of those fish, but have you ever seen a huken?
Kecsegét kaptunk,
Catch a good?
ilyen nagyot.
Really?
Ha,
János says that when he was a boy, he remembers seeing large sturgeon,
vannak
but as for the huken,
nincsen.
he's not sure.
Nincs.
He says, huken, they just seem to be gone, but don't ask me. I don't know about these things, ask a fisherman.
Before I can resume my search, János invites me to try out what he says is his last ever canoe.
Where do I sit?
Oda.
Here?
These days, no one wants a hand-carved boat.
Még előbbre, menjen.
This one is destined for a museum.
It's very nice. It's very good.
De előbbre kéne ülni neki. Kom.
Okay, okay.
Hagyja meg jól.
I like it. It's stable. I'll take it. How much?
Back on the main river, my search for the Danube's missing predator is taking me into more densely populated country. Huken are thought to have abandoned many of their old haunts because of pollution. But so far, at least, the water seems remarkably clean.
When you're in a city, the sounds that you hear tend to be all man-made. There's voices everywhere, there's traffic. But if you come out here, you can actually hear the voice of the river. And looking down, I'm very much aware of the flow of the river
the sheer volume of water that's passing every moment. With so much flow, big rivers have an impressive capacity to clean themselves. This, and the fact that there's no heavy industry around here, should be good news for the Huken. But has anyone here even heard of this fish?
Hello.
Oh, hi.
This is a good spot here.
Yeah, it's actually a famous spot. Budapest city center is one of the best spots in Hungary.
It turns out that Laszlo has been fishing here since he was a boy, and he says there's plenty to catch.
Looks like he's even got something. Do you think he'd show us?
Yes, of course.
What's the Hungarian name?
In Hungarian English dictionaries, they are called nose carp because of that.
So the water here is clean?
Yeah, normally it's transparent. Pollution level is very low. Now there are more predators here.
Do you ever see the Huken here? Have you ever seen it?
Oh, the mysterious fish. Sometimes you hear a gossip that somebody caught one over there, and then there's another gossip that someone caught one over there. I have even traveled to distant countries to try to catch it, but I've never seen it in Budapest. It will be my dream.
With clean water and no shortage of prey, this stretch of the Danube ticks 2 big boxes for the Huken. Yet the only place it lives is in people's dreams. Maybe I'll find the real thing in neighboring Austria. I'm going to a place that was once at the heart of the Huken's range. Superficially, there's not much wrong with the Danube here. And on close inspection, it looks better suited to Huken than anywhere I've seen so far.
It's narrower, but it's also faster, the water's clearer, and almost certainly there's a higher oxygen content. Now, from my knowledge of the salmon family, it's this kind of water where they're much more likely to feel at home.
Huken are active sight hunters that thrive in clean, fast-flowing watercourses. That's why their presence is a kind of gold standard for a healthy river.
This is a nice little bit of slack off the main push. I mean, the main current is running very, very strong and fast. But in here, it's the kind of place that fish might be lurking. What I'm trying to do is let the lure sink to the bottom and then just twitch it, let it sink again, twitch it, let it sink again, twitch, sink.
One thing that can't be blamed for the Huken's absence is overfishing. As a species, Huken have never been commercially exploited. And here, at least, recreational anglers are required by law to put them back. Since nothing is biting, though, I decide to ask around.
What fish are you after?
Pike.
For pike?
Hecht.
Ah, hecht.
Yeah.
Have you fished here on the Danube many years?
Yes, yeah.
Since small boy?
Yes, little boy.
Yeah. What about Huken? Do you see them at all in the river now?
Es gibt Huchen, aber ich kenne mich nicht so aus bei Huchen. Aber ich habe einen Freund, der züchtet Huchen.
You basically don't see them on the river these days, but he says if I want to find out about Huken, he's given me a name, and that sounds very intriguing. Nice, thank you.
The fisherman has given me an unexpected lead. Maybe I'm actually going to find the fish that's been missing from the Danube for 30 years.
Look at that.
I'm on the mighty Danube, looking for the Huken, a fish that's been missing for 30 years. In Austria's scenic Wachau Valley, I've just been told about some Huken experts.
Nice to meet you too.
The aptly named fishers are eager to show me something very special.
Look at that. What an amazing fish.
For decades, Huken have hardly been seen in the Danube.
Just so fantastic. I've never seen Huken before, and here they are, they're almost in touching distance.
What we do here, we're keeping them.
Joe and his dad are Hooken fanatics.
We use them for...
For years, they've dreamt of re-establishing a wild population in the Wachau Valley. This irrigated pond holds their precious breeding stock.
That's nice. Here we go. There. Look at this. I never thought I would get to hold one of these in my lifetime. That's a very, very rare fish. And they are just magnificent.
Breeding and raising baby Hooken is a time-consuming business that costs the fishers a lot of money.
The fact that you are doing it as private individuals, purely out of interest and passion, that really is something special.
Definitely. If we don't do it, nobody else is doing it.
Bringing the Hooken back would be extraordinary. But for that to happen, don't we need to understand why it vanished in the first place?
So this big decline in the Hooken, why do you think that was?
The biggest problem is straightening. In the 17th and 18th century, the government wanted to do shipping a little easier, and now it's a huge problem.
Starting 300 years ago, it seems that large stretches of the naturally winding Danube have been radically re-engineered.
Here, let me show you.
Oh, wow. That's really dramatic. A surprising amount of change.
Right here, it was ideal for Hooken. There's a lot of bends and curves. When you go further, you see that all the gravel banks and bends are lost. They were the most important thing for the Hooken to breed.
So it's a conflict between navigation and the breeding of the Hooken, and by improving the navigation, it is almost destroyed the breeding conditions for the Hooken.
Definitely, correct.
Remarkably, though, I'm told that some of the engineering that destroyed the Hooken's breeding grounds has now been undone. And for the fishers, this is creating a unique opportunity. When the Danube was straightened for shipping, side branches like this were sealed off. But several have now been reconnected, and these revived backwaters make an ideal nursery for young Hooken.
The temperature right here is perfect. It's very clear. There's no waste from ships. Plus, there's no fishing allowed. So they can grow up here very safely.
Just as important, though, is that the Danube's reopened side branches also have the right conditions for adult Hooken to breed.
Successful breeding for Hooken is about the structure of the riverbed. They need gravel in order to breed. The thing about gravel as opposed to mud or silt is the spaces in between. This allows the water to flow around the eggs, bringing that all-important dissolved oxygen, without which those eggs would just die. If you straighten the river, if the flow is too strong, it washes away those gravel beds and you lose the fish. When I first tried to pick up the trail of the Hooken back in Hungary, I never imagined that I would see one actually in the waters of the Danube, and here I am, not seeing one, there's 30 or 40 in front of me. This could be the beginning of something very significant.
If the Hooken story teaches me anything,
Good luck.
it's that a tightly controlled river is not wildlife friendly, no matter how pretty it looks.
The whole process of control of the river by humans is something which has continued and accelerated even until this day. The thing about rivers is that they're restless, writhing creatures. They keep changing their course, so we lock them in a straitjacket. But the fish don't always like that.
Further up the Danube, though, lives an exception, an aquatic invader that's wreaking havoc. In its upper reaches, the Danube is more than 1,500 miles from the sea. But I've heard that this part of the river is being overrun by a saltwater invader. Oh, there we go, something just pulled. Oh, yes, I've got one. It may look cute, but according to reports, it's a destroyer. This is a thing called a round goby. This shouldn't be anywhere near here. The goby's natural habitat is on the shores of the Black Sea, amongst rocks. This interesting arrangement of the pelvic fins, that is for sort of holding itself to a rock. To find out more about these tiny invaders, I've arranged to go fishing with biology professor Jürgen Geist.
Nice to meet you. You will need rubber boots and special gloves.
So these gobies, how do they get here?
By ship ballast water. They hump in water and automatically suck in eggs or larvae or even adult fish. And when this water gets released at those upstream sites, the gobies enter these areas.
So basically right down in the mouth of the river, they're taking in water just to create stability for the boat. That then comes up here, they let that water go.
Yes.
But it's not just water, there's lots of other stuff in it as well.
Exactly. There are very few fish that can easily move from salt water into fresh water, but the gobies can cope very well with fresh water.
Today, Jürgen and his team want to know exactly what's living in the water along this section of man-made riverbank.
We will do some electrofishing in this shallow area.
Jürgen's net is in fact an electrode that shocks the water with around 800 volts, enough to stun any fish within 6 feet. My job is to scoop them up before they recover and swim off. We quickly fill our bucket with fish. But how many of them actually belong here?
Out of all the fish that we caught here, there's just one single native species.
That's a chub, isn't it?
Yes. But this is totally dominated by gobies. We find all size and age classes, from the really big adults to those very small ones. This is ideal habitat for them.
The tight-packed rocks along the banks hold the river in place. For native fish, this straitjacket is an alien environment. But for the gobies, it's home away from home.
I have noticed a lot of these banks. How much of the Danube are we talking about?
More than 90%.
So what effect does this have on the native species?
Within the last 10 to 15 years, the entire food web of this upper Danube region has completely changed.
That's a lot of gobies.
Hundreds of miles of man-made banks are allowing the invaders to proliferate. And worse still, they're gobbling up the eggs and young of native fish. The question is, does anything here eat gobies? Dusk is often the time when predators stir. And there's one in particular that could be very significant.
Just a few feet out, you've got an area that's about 20 foot deep. It's the kind of place where you'd expect to find larger fish.
When I think about fish that might be unaffected by man-made banks, my mind turns to a beast that can grow bigger than a man. It's a fish that guards its nest, so any gobies after its eggs would end up on the menu themselves. If it is still here, then I, for one, will feel a flicker of hope.
Here we go, here we go. Yes! Yes! I've got the drag really tight because I don't want the fish running. I just want it, this is strong gear, I just want to get it in. Ah! Oh God, it's still there. It's in close, it's in close. There it is, there it is. we go. Here we go. This, I'm very pleased to say, is a native species.
The Danubian or Wells catfish is an eating machine.
This is the apex predator of this part of the river. And thinking about those gobies, they would just be perfect snacks, not even bite-sized snacks. They wouldn't need to bite them, they just suck them in.
For me, though, this goby eater is doubly significant.
In most of the big rivers in the world now, you won't find iconic species in the main rivers. You've got to go to very remote corners on the river systems. So to get a decent-sized Danubian catfish from the Danube actually feels very good.
Perhaps more than any other river in the world, the Danube is one continuous picture postcard. How could anything possibly be wrong? But looking under the surface, what you've got is a very complicated story. This is far from a natural wild river. What makes me hopeful is the continued presence of the beluga sturgeon, the hooken, and the Danubian Wells catfish. That these are still here, still clinging on, is testimony to the fact that this is still a living river. To find out what you can do to help the rivers in your part of the world, go to animalplanet.com/mightyrivers.